Alright guys, this week we have been grinding out the miles, grinding out the first run review videos. We got one in the beautiful Asics Novablast 4 a few days ago, and tomorrow we are going to get in a 23-mile long run, which should get us up to 116 or 17 miles on the week, depending on how my Strava calculates things. We got in a lot of great miles this week. We got the Mach 6, we did the Pro 4, we did the Novablast 4, and I am really eager to test this as a long run shoe because it has so much stack, 41.5 millimeters of stack in the heel. And also my guy Sheldon January, he emailed me asking about how the Novablast 4 would be against the On Cloud Monster as a long run shoe. So this thing is an absolute tank so far. I love how protective it feels, but still lightweight. And I've run in a lot of non-plated shoes, a lot of the best non-plated shoes on the market over the past year. So it's a little bit late right now. It is 10:54 p.m. I'm just getting up the Hoka Mach 6 first run review, uploading right there. Tomorrow morning when I wake up, I'm going to take you through all of these non-plated shoes that I've done long runs in. And then we're going to lace up this Novablast 4 and see how it stacks up compared to some of the best hitters out here, and also how this guy does compared to some of these plated shoes that I've gotten long runs in over the past few months. All right, guys, Novablast 4, man. You got the wide base, you got a pretty face, and now you're in the hot seat. All right, guys, it is 5:19 a.m. We got the coffee and the breakfast going in the other room. I did want to talk you through Asics Novablast 4. Some of the things that set this shoe apart from a lot of the other non-plated shoes that I've used for long runs over the past few years. Now, I'm going to pull these all onto the desk, and then we can talk through some of these other non-plated shoes and how they've been for long runs. All right, guys, as promised, on the table here is every single shoe that I've used to run 16 miles in the past few years, and in my hand I have the On Cloud Monster, which I've also used to run 16 miles, but look how dirty this thing is. I don't want to put it on the table because it's absolutely disgusting. Now, our friend Sheldon is deciding between this shoe and the Novablast 4. So this is the shoe that I used to do my long runs during the 2022 Charlotte Marathon build, and it doesn't have the most stack, and that's going to be the key thing with the Novablast 4 compared to all of these other shoes I have on the table here. What sets this apart is we got the 41.5 millimeters of stack in here. So this guy does not have a plate, but you're getting almost the same benefit that plated shoes give because you get so much protection and so much cushion. And so the reason why brands add plates into a lot of shoes like the Saucony Endorphin Speed 4 and the SC Trainer V2 is because in a lot of cases, you can't have this much cushion and this much stack without a plate to stabilize it. So if we take a look at a shoe like the Rebel V3 here, and I did some 16-mile long runs in this last year, it doesn't have a ton of stack. We're getting 27.5 millimeters of cushion in the heel here. The SC Trainer V2 is the tall stacked version of this, and it has to have a plate because otherwise this fuel cell foam in here would be so squishy and squiggly. Now if we take a look at the differences between these two, it is just insane. The Novablast has nearly double the foam as the Rebel V3. And so what you're going to get from a shoe like the Rebel V3 or even the Rebel V4 for a long run, which I did a 23-mile long run, and this is the last non-plated shoe I used to go over 22 miles. What you get from these two shoes versus something like a Novablast, these are going to work your lower legs a lot more and give a lot less protection from your feet. And so if you're deciding between getting a shoe like the Novablast or the Rebel V3 and you want one shoe to do everything, that's really going to depend on your training and where you're at. If you are considering doing a ton of long runs, you might want a little bit more cushion than something like the Rebel V4 or even the Rebel V3 can give. Now, the Novablast 4, in my first runs in the shoe, I did a 20-mile double day earlier this week. It gave me a little bit of a firmer foam feeling in here, and that's what a lot of these shoes on the table have, because if I'm going to use a non-plated shoe for a long run, I don't want it to be super squishy. That's the reason I never used the Asics Gel Nimbus or even my New Balance 1080, which is my favorite max cushion shoe. I never used those two for long runs because I don't like that super squishy feeling. And so a shoe that is a max cushion shoe, but a little bit less of that squishy, squirrely feeling that I've been recommending as a long run shoe recently is the Saucony Triumph 20. And during my first run in the Novablast 4 here, it gave me some similar characteristics to this Triumph here, taller stack, a little bit bouncier. It's not going to feel super soft underfoot as you get up past that 2-hour mark, so you can still keep turning over the legs. And similarly here, we got the Puma Velocity Nitro 3. I used this to do a 22-mile long run on the treadmill a few weeks ago, and it's the same thing, right? It's not a max cushion shoe. It's about 35 millimeters in the heel here, but you got a little bit of a firmer cushion, which I know a lot of you guys on shorter runs don't prefer having that much firmness. But in a shoe like this, for those longer runs, it can be super helpful. And I said when I ran in this, it runs almost like a plated shoe. And I was getting a little bit of that similar feel in the Novablast when I ran it a few days ago. If you have a shoe like this or the Novablast, you might not need a plated shoe depending on your paces and mileage to do a workout and to do long runs. And so if we're thinking about the firm shoes, 2 more shoes that I've used for long runs over the past year have been the Brooks Hyperion Max and the Adizero SL. Now, one of the things I did last year to improve my fitness is slow grind, improving marathon fitness, and I knew that, which is why I didn't do any marathons last year, focus on half marathons. But one of the things I did was I did 16 weeks of 16-mile long runs. For some reason, I wanted to get to 16 and 16. That's besides the point. But I was using the Brooks Hyperion Max for some of those. I used the Adidas Adizero SL for some of those. And it was not the most fun thing to grind out 2-hour long runs in these super firm shoes. These are the 2 of the firmest shoes that I have. And the Adizero SL has a little bit of this Light Strike Pro foam in the forefoot to give it some pop here. But for me, these ultra firm options, these are not going to be the best for long runs either. I prefer these shoes. Well, I don't enjoy the Brooks Hyperion Max the best, but I prefer these types of shoes for shorter, faster runs. That's where I really get the most benefit out of a firmer shoe. So another thing I'm going to be thinking about is, with this Novablast being firm, how does it feel for so many miles? Because it can be a really nice cushion sensation once it starts to break in. It can also start to feel a little bit grating, like the Brooks Hyperion Max. I felt that I didn't have enough strength to run in good form with this for an entire 2 hours and not have it feel like it was too firm. Now we got 2 shoes left on the table here on Cloud Stratus. Again, another shoe that's pretty similar in feeling to the Novablast that kind of flies under the radar. This is a super underrated shoe. This is the Cloud Stratus 2. It's got a firmer EVA style foam in here with the Cloud Tech pods. It's got the Rockcatcher 5000, a plastic plate. I'm still calling this a non-plated shoe because On puts the speedboard here close to the foot, not necessarily to do the same exact thing that a plate in the Saucony Endorphin Speed 4 or SC Trainer would do. This is their old style of shoes. They put these speed boards and everything. So I'm not considering this a plated shoe. Really underrated shoe if you need some stability, like a slightly firmer ride and want something super comfortable. The toe box on these things is huge. Cloud Stratus 3 also came out at some point last year. So I would actually maybe look at this if you want a durable, long-lasting, well-built daily trainer. But I took this up for some longer miles. It has some nice pep in it. It's all around a pretty solid shoe, and Novablast is actually a really good comp for it. The difference between this and the Cloud Monster is Cloud Monster has a little bit more of a fun ride. This has a little bit more of a serious but nice pep ride to it. Cloud Monster is a little bit more relaxed. And then Mach 5, this guy is a super fun shoe. Very versatile, but when you get it up to that 2-hour mark, in this generation, it goes a little bit flat. I got to take the Mach 6, which has been upgraded to the shoe rack there. I got to take that one for a 20-plus mile long run soon. But this guy definitely did not have enough cushion in it for my preference for going 16-plus miles, and especially if I were going to go 22, 23 like I'm doing this morning, I would want something with a little bit more stack here, like the Novablast 4. All right, guys, so that is an overview of some of the top non-plated shoes that I've used for long runs. So if you are considering getting a non-plated shoe, which I recommend, yeah, I know I've been doing a lot of these long runs recently in Diadora Gara, Tier Valkyrie Elite Carbon, the Hoka, but I also like using non-plated shoes sometimes to switch it up, work some different muscles, not rely on having that plate all the time. Triumph 20 is my current top option for a non-plated shoe for long runs. Depending on how fast you are and how long your long run is, if you're going 90 minutes for your long run, Brooks Hyperion Max could be a choice, but for that 2-hour long run mark, Triumph 20 is my current top pick. Cloud Monster is another good call. That one's down here. Super dirty, also a great call for playing lacrosse with the kids in the backyard. So we will see where the Novablast fits. All right, I gotta get my breakfast in, coffee in, and then we're gonna hit the road. So I typically don't eat a ton before my long runs. I gotta get the black coffee in, of course, and you guys know it's all about the timing with the black coffee. and then just a bagel with sometimes with peanut butter. Today I just kept it simple with butter or an English muffin or something like this to make sure I'm getting 200, 300 calories in the stomach. And then I'm going to do the Tailwind Endurance Fuel. Sometimes I will do it before the run and then also during the run. I think today I'm just going to do it during the run. I don't want to chug the Tailwind Endurance Fuel in the morning. What do you got? Raspberry caffeinated. We're kind of down to the last here. I guess we're just going to do the raspberry caffeinated. Then I'm also going to get a Morton gel. And so I don't always do the gel and the Tailwind. I have been doing that recently. But this should be enough calories and carbs to make it through for 3 hours. And these long training runs where I'm going 2+ hours, if you're doing this in your marathon training block or even a half marathon training block, this is a great opportunity to test out some of the fueling. And so this is what I've landed on. I'll do both of these. Last week I actually just did the gels, and I think I might have liked that a little bit better, and I carried the plain water with me. So I'm going to have to try that again, but I only have one more of these gels, so we're going to have to do both today. All right, guys, it is 6:17. It is game time. Now, it is also still pitch black out there, so I'm going to lace up in here this morning, and this is something I'm still trying to figure out, guys. With the long run, it's just so long that there's no way I can be finished before the kids wake up. I would have to wake up at 3 a.m. and then go out at 4 a.m. to be back by 7. Because this morning I'm doing probably 23 miles is the goal. Maybe we'll do, I don't know, I'll cap anything from 16 to 20 if I'm not feeling it. Always give myself that option. But goal today is 23 miles. There's no way to finish before the kids wake up. So shout out to Charles for holding it down here until that happens. But I would love to find a way to be done a little bit sooner. That's why the treadmill is so great for shorter runs. But I'm not going to do a long run on the treadmill. It's nicer to be outside. It builds fitness in a different way for me. All right, lacing up these Novablast 4. This is a very comfortable shoe. It's not the softest, squishiest. It's a little firmer, but upper is really comfortable, especially after being in this Mach 6 yesterday. This guy is super short. It's almost a full size too small. And I can still feel my big toe in here a little bit sore from being in the Mach 6. But in this guy, it's right up here, a little bit before the toe cap, and the Mach 6, it was all the way slammed up against the edge. So what I'm going to be checking for today across these 23 miles is, how does the foam perform? Do I have enough protection? And I better have enough protection. This is one of the most stacked daily trainers on the market, if not the most stacked daily trainer. How does it feel for just being on my feet for that long? Because it's a long time no matter how much stack you have. And then I'm not going to be doing a fast workout this morning. It's just time on feet. But how is the stability for the later miles? I might throw in some pace pickup here and there depending on how I'm feeling. So how does this respond when I add some marathon pace? And then in general, is it a shoe that I want to have on my feet for 2+ hours? I'll be back in a little bit. Well, I'll be back in a long bit after we get these 23 miles in. One more thing, guys. I know it's not good to wear shoes in the house, but I want you to listen to the sound these make when I'm walking. Because one of the things I noticed on my first run was that there's a little bit of a disconnected feeling from the heel to the forefoot. And watch this when I walk. I don't know if you can hear that, but it goes doo-doon, doo-doon, doo-doon. Because this back area is hitting the ground first. Then the front kind of smacks down. So we will see if we get that same disconnected vibe out there on the ride. But it is now almost 6:30, so we got to hit the road. this. Look at that cardinal. Right there. Man, it's beautiful. All right, guys, it is 9:51 a.m. We just finished the run. This is usually where I would flash up the mileage, but this thing went out on me. It's got, can you see up at the top there? Let me see. We got 1% left. You can see right up there at the top. And this thing just kept shutting off at me. So I dropped my glove and I had to pick it up. It's in my pocket around mile 17. And then I paused it and it was at 1%. And then when I restarted it, it completely wiped out that first run. So that was kind of a bummer, and I kept trying to restart it and then it wouldn't go. So I think it has some sort of a limiter on here where when it's at 1%, the Coros Pace 3 will shut itself off and not record any activities. Watch this. So you see I try to move it here and it just says please charge 1%. So I believe we got 23 miles on the day because I came back here to grab my phone because I know you guys are going to want to see the stats. So here we go. Long run part 2. And part 1 was 17 miles somewhere on the watch. It'll probably load up in here. As for the shoes, man, whew, these things were smooth. I left at around 6:30 and now it's 9:53. So I was out there. I took one bathroom break, came back to get the phone, which took a minute or two. So I was out there on my feet for 3 hours and 20 minutes about. These things just keep going. Keep going, keep going. Like that Larry June and Harry Fraud albums. We got any Larry June fans out there? If you are a Larry June fan, drop me an orange in the comments. Alright, let's do this post-run wrap-up, Asics Novablast 4. Alright guys, 3 hours or 22 to 23 miles in Asics Novablast 4. We will get the final mileage tally up there for you guys. And this was one of those runs where I was just working through stuff in my head. I was cruising, and this was the perfect shoe for that run. It's smooth, it's lightweight, it's got a nice bounce to it, but for the most part, I just zoned out and was working through those miles. Now, the biggest piece of drama came on that run where my watch turned off or stopped the run. I had to figure out what I was gonna do for tracking. And then I came back home and grabbed my phone, and I was at about mile 17, and throughout that whole fiasco, I was not thinking about the shoe at all. I was not thinking about being at mile 17 or mile 18 at all, which tells me two things. One, my fitness is in a really good place in this marathon training block. And guys, doing these 2.5 hour long runs week after week has been awesome for me. And I built up to this place by last year grinding out 16 milers in the Hyperion Max and the Audi Zero SL. And then this year working up to these 22 milers, 23 milers, which are now a lot easier for me. They feel easier, I think, than those 16 milers did because I was so consistent with it. So that's the first thing. And the second thing is, this is a perfect shoe for a long run because I didn't have to think about it at all. It didn't get in my way, and it gave me the perfect amount of pop and support. And now, a few of the things that I was worried about or critiqued on my first run of the shoe actually served it really well for a long run, and that's where you see a little bit of the trade-offs that we talk about a lot on this channel. For example, having a lower stack shoe is going to give you more ground feel, it's going to feel nimble, maybe it might be a little bit faster. Having more stack is going to feel a little bit cumbersome, it might feel awkward when walking, but it's going to be great for a long run. So this is super protective, and in that first run video, I said this is not a shoe you want to take to Harris Teeter, this is not a shoe you're going to want to take to wear with your kids in the park. This is a running shoe, and at $140, you are getting a ton of value from
a high performance running shoe, but they're not designing it to compete with shoes like the 880 and Pegasus, which are more designed for hybrid everyday use, gym work, casual, regular life use. This is not that. This is gonna be a beast for cranking out a 3-hour effort. And so guys, with that, being out here on my feet for about 3 hours, 20 minutes total with stops, coming back here, whatever it was, that is equivalent to a marathon for a lot of people. I think this could be an excellent non-plated marathon shoe. Now, I have not tried the Asics Novablast, which in a lot of ways is the bigger brother or one step above this, but that is $60 more than this guy. And at $140, this might be the best value shoe for a marathon racer out there. I think you could run a sub 330 in this guy, which is pretty wild to say about a non-plated shoe that costs $140, and you're yet to see how the durability is with this. But even if the durability isn't great, that's half the price of some of the racers out there. Hoka Cielo X1, that's going for $275. Alpha Fly is going for $285. This is a much better shoe for a lot of runners out there likely than the Alpha Fly for a marathon, and it's only $140, which completely blows my mind. Now, the other thing that I was a little bit wary of in the first run was how firm this foam felt, and I like firmer shoes. I like the Audi Zero SL. I like the Saucony Endorphin Shift 3. The Brooks Hyperion Max was okay. It wasn't the firmness of the foam in that shoe that bothered me, though it was maybe even a little bit firmer than the Audi Zero SL. To me, it was more of that heel cutout at the end. But with this guy, the firmness of the foam over the course of the long run, again, really helped it be that structured shoe where you want to have a little bit more to stand up to that force, that time on feet at the end of a long run. And so I've done long runs even in plated shoes like the Saucony Endorphin Speed 4, where at the end of that long run, I felt that the PIBA compound that they were using, the Power Run PB, combined with the plastic plate, just was not enough something for me underfoot. It didn't have that nice robust feel that I want from a long run shoe. Now this, you can see here, has a ton of cushion underfoot, and if we look at it from the top here, you can see the cushion flares out. I think this plays just as much a role in this being an awesome long run shoe as does the height, because the wide base here gives it a ton of stability. So no matter where you land on the back, you land in the middle, you land on the front, you're gonna get a lot of support out of the shoe. Now, because it has so much foam and you can land anywhere, it's not a shoe like a lot of the other non-plated shoes that I've taken for long runs that forces you to run in a certain way to get the most benefit out of the shoe. For example, Brooks Hyperion Max, you have to be running midfoot to forefoot to really get benefit out of that shoe. Rebel V3, with how flexible it is and being under 30 millimeters in the heel, you're not gonna wanna run with poor form, mashing down your heel and sending shockwaves up through your knees. It really encourages a light touch. Same thing with the Hoka Mach 5. That shoe encourages running a little bit more gracefully. So again, guys, trade-offs. The benefit of wearing a shoe like that for me was that it encouraged me to develop a little bit better form, to be more mindful, to have more of that brain-body connection as I was running, really focusing on how am I going to be landing, making sure that I'm trying to land a little bit more flat-footed to up, maybe even up toward the toes, visualizing what good form looks like and thinking about running with grace. Now, the downside of that is Rebel V3, Mach 5, Hyperion Max, they do not have nearly as much protection as this shoe, so taking them up to 2.5 hours, my legs were a lot more fatigued at the end of those runs, and it's a lot more mentally taxing thinking about running with good form for 2.5 hours. Now with this shoe here, I could run with terrible form. I could heel mash, I could drag, I could scuff, I could do whatever I needed to do, and this shoe would just pop me right along because it's so cushioned, it's so comfortable, it's so stable, I don't have to think about it at all. And so if I'm gonna be doing a 3-hour long run, I will take this shoe 10 out of 10 times. I'm also 4 to 5 weeks out from my marathon. I'm not messing around with wearing a 25 millimeter stack shoe on a long run. That is not for me running, I don't know how many miles I hit this week, 115 to 120 miles. Shoes like this exist exactly for this purpose, to help us hit these higher mileage levels in comfort, a little bit more safely than a lower stack shoe might. So there's a time and a place for both. Like I mentioned yesterday in that Mach 6 first run video, as we get into these warmer months, as the mileage comes down, as we get closer to peak speed fitness and working more of that top end fast effort speed, that's when shoes like the Rebel, the Mach, the Hyperion Max, any of these lower stack lightweight shoes are really enjoyable to use when we are running faster and a little bit more focused on speed than endurance. This guy is an endurance monster. This is an absolute tank. The protection you're getting out of this is insane. Now, Downsides, this was a wet day and the grip on this was not great whatsoever. We got tons of rubber out here, but I was slipping and sliding a little bit. I often don't have any issues feeling like I'm slipping and sliding, and that was the one time where I did have to think about what I was doing on this run when I was in any wetter sections in the shoe. It's not as good as the Adidas Continental rubber. It's not as good as the Puma grip. It's not as good as even Nike, what they have on the Vomero. The rubber on here is one of the worst rubbers that I've tested. So that is an area I would like to see Asics improve in the next generation of shoes, adding a stickier rubber. That would take this thing even to the next level, and it's already an awesome shoe. Now in terms of the upper, other than us keeping it super white today, and I have no idea how we did this, we got a little bit of damage right there, but it is a very comfortable, really nice fitting upper. It is perfect in my true to size 10.5. I might even have a little bit more room in the toe box than I need. I do not mind that at all. I do not complain about having a little bit more room. I will take that every time. It is not like that Mach 6 we tested yesterday, which was super snug in my 10.5. So you can go true to size in this. You might even be able to size down. I would not advise you sizing down, but you might be able to if you like having a really snug fit. And with the upper too, guys, and this is a shoe that's evading some of the trade-offs a little bit because it has a ton of padding and it's still lightweight. A ton of stack, a ton of comfort, a ton of padding, and lightweight. This has got to be one of the best daily trainers that I've tried, right up there with the Rebel V4. But it's interesting because these two shoes, Rebel V4 and Novablast, are two opposite sides of the coin. There's a 10mm stack height difference, but they're both lightweight. They both have nice, wide, stable bases, and they are both super versatile. So we're gonna need to do a head-to-head so we can dig into all the details, but Rebel V4, Novablast 4, these are my top two shoes right now. And I think if you're gonna buy a daily trainer, those are the ones that you should be considering. So if you want something a little bit firmer, if you are a bigger runner, if you are looking for that long run shoe, and my guy Sheldon, you're deciding between this and the Cloud Monster, I would choose this. This is gonna be a really good, supportive, stable shoe, super comfortable over the long miles. I went over 3 hours in it today and I was still cruising. I felt like I could have gone another hour in this in comfort, no issues. I also think, guys, this can hang with the big boys. This can hang with the Boston 12. This can hang with the SC Trainer V2. This wipes the floor with the Saucony Endorphin Speed 4. This is punching well above its weight class. And as I'm thinking about the Asics lineup, it makes sense that they've done this with the Novablast 4 because they don't have a plated training shoe to compete with those. They have the Superblast, which sits above the SC Trainer V2 and Boston 12 at $200. Then they have the Magic Speed, which is more of that Takumi Sen competitor. We'll see what they do with the Magic Speed 4. And then this is more of that everyday shoe that's offering a race day foam feel like the SC Trainer V2, Boston 12, and Saucony Endorphin Speed 4, but still with a lightweight package and fun, fast ride. So if you've been considering those shoes something to run long miles in, maybe not for super top end speed, because that's not what this is designed for, that's what the Magic Speed is for, but something for those longer endurance efforts with your marathon pace. If you're running 3-hour marathons, 4-hour marathons, this could be that one do-it-all shoe. And there's probably two ways to do it, right? You could pair this with a lower stack shoe like the Magic Speed, like the Takumi Sen. Use this for your long runs and daily miles. Use that Takumi Sen or Magic Speed for your faster efforts. Topo Cyclone is another one that's been recommended that's really good for those fast top end efforts. Or you could use this for your everyday miles, your recovery runs, your long runs, and then get a race day shoe to use for some of your long runs with pace and your workouts. So this can do 90% of all your runs out there. There's not too many things it can't do so far. I've taken it down to some faster pace. I've taken it to recovery pace. I've done stroller runs. I've done this long run. We're gonna have to test how the durability is with the foam because that is still the area where I'm not too sure, but I think this would make an awesome shoe in a 2-shoe rotation, and at $140, this is incredible value. I think Asics could have priced this at $150, $160, and it would still be a really competitive option given that shoes like the Vomero are at $160, shoes like Brooks Ghost Max are at $150, but because they have the Superblast sitting at $200, I think they're taking that dual tier approach, and so they're letting this drop down to $140. They got the Nimbus and that Max Cushion segment at $160. and then Superblast is sitting above it all at 200. So Sheldon, I hope this was helpful for you. I highly recommend the Novablast 4 for long runs over the Cloud Monster. Cloud Monster is a better shoe for walking and everyday stuff than this, but if you want to use this for 3+ hour long runs, like you said in your email, this is going to be the pick for you. And it's also just an awesome running shoe. The only thing that it can't do is that walking. So I hope this was helpful to everybody out there. As always, I appreciate you watching, and I'll be back tomorrow with another video.